So there's this immune cell called a mast cell that most of us have never heard of, but it might explain why some women suddenly develop what looks like anxiety, food sensitivities, and even bladder pain during perimenopause. Turns out when your hormones drop, these little immune troublemakers can go absolutely haywire.
Hi there, I'm Tony Lee, and this is Hot Flasher, your daily menopause podcast that serves up fresh news, research, and wellness tips. I've built a daily news pipeline to find the latest on women's health and menopause research. Allow me to introduce my co-host, Nikki, who handles the headlines. Take it away, Nikki.
Thanks, Tony. We've got some fascinating science today. I'm Nikki, and today we're talking about what happens when your immune system decides to throw its own little tantrum during menopause. We've got fresh research on the specific inflammatory markers that might be driving your hot flashes, plus some eye-opening information about why your body might suddenly seem allergic to everything. Let's start with some brand new research that just came out this month. Scientists looked at two specific inflammatory markers, IL-26 and IL-38, and their connection to hot flashes and other vasomotor symptoms. Now, before your eyes glaze over at those letters and numbers, stay with me because this is actually pretty interesting. These are what we call cytokines, basically chemical messengers that your immune system uses to communicate. Think of them as the group text where your immune cells coordinate their response to whatever they think is going wrong in your body. The researchers found that women with more severe hot flashes had different levels of these particular markers compared to women with milder symptoms or no symptoms at all. What's intriguing about this is that it gives us more concrete evidence that hot flashes aren't just about estrogen dropping. There's this whole inflammatory cascade happening too. This builds on what we've been learning about menopause being partly an inflammatory condition. Your declining hormones seem to trigger your immune system to ramp up inflammation, and that inflammation then contributes to the symptoms you experience. It's like your body is having an argument with itself, and you're the one dealing with the fallout. The practical implication? Well, it suggests that addressing inflammation might be as important as addressing hormones when it comes to managing vasomotor symptoms. Research suggests that anti-inflammatory approaches, whether through diet, lifestyle, or targeted supplements, might help some women reduce the intensity of their hot flashes. Speaking of immune system drama, let's talk about mast cells. Dr. Mary Claire Haver recently had an allergist and immunologist on her podcast to discuss something called mast cell activation syndrome. And honestly, this conversation should be required listening for anyone in perimenopause. Mast cells are immune cells that live throughout your body, in your skin, your gut, your lungs, everywhere. When they encounter something they perceive as a threat, they release histamine and other inflammatory chemicals. That's totally normal. The problem comes when they start overreacting to things that shouldn't be threats. During perimenopause, as your estrogen levels fluctuate and eventually decline, these mast cells can become hypervigilant. Suddenly, you might find yourself reacting to foods you've eaten your whole life, developing mysterious rashes, or experiencing what feels like anxiety but is actually your body responding to histamine release. Dr. Zachary Rubin explained that women are disproportionately affected by mast cell-related conditions, and the timing often coincides with hormonal transitions. The symptoms can be all over the map: digestive issues, skin problems, heart palpitations, brain fog, mood swings that feel different from typical hormonal mood changes. What makes this particularly tricky is that mast cell activation syndrome can look a lot like anxiety or panic disorders. You might feel jittery, have trouble sleeping, or experience this underlying sense that something is wrong. But if it's actually histamine reactions, treating it as anxiety alone won't solve the problem. Some women find that following a lower histamine diet helps, or taking natural antihistamines, or working with practitioners who understand the connection between hormones and mast cell function. The key is recognizing that not everything weird happening in your body is directly caused by estrogen loss. Sometimes it's the cascade effects of estrogen loss on other systems. Now let's shift to something that affects way more women than most people. Realize pelvic pain and bladder issues during menopause. Dr. Christine Vaccaro, a urogynecologist, was recently on another podcast discussing interstitial cystitis and other pelvic pain conditions that often emerge or worsen during menopause. Interstitial cystitis is basically when your bladder becomes chronically inflamed and painful. You might feel like you have a urinary tract infection all the time, but cultures come back negative. You might have urgency, frequency, pain during intimacy, or this constant feeling of pressure in your pelvis. What's particularly relevant for us is that both estrogen and testosterone play crucial roles in bladder and pelvic floor health. These hormones help maintain the tissue integrity of your urinary tract, support proper blood flow to the area, and keep inflammation in check. When hormone levels drop during menopause, the tissues in your pelvic area can become thinner, more sensitive, and more prone to inflammation. The bladder lining might not protect itself as well, leading to that interstitial cystitis picture. The pelvic floor muscles might become tighter or weaker, contributing to pain and dysfunction. Dr. Vaccaro emphasized that this isn't just about accepting pain as part of aging. There are treatments available from hormone therapy to pelvic floor physical therapy to targeted medications and supplements. But first, women need to know that these symptoms are real, they're connected to hormonal changes, and they're treatable. What struck me about this conversation is how many women suffer with pelvic pain or bladder issues without ever connecting them to menopause. They might see multiple doctors, get told it's stress or that nothing's wrong when actually there's a very clear hormonal component that could be addressed. The other thing that came up in this discussion is the importance of finding practitioners who understand the complexity of women's pelvic health. This isn't just basic gynecology, it's specialized knowledge about how hormones, inflammation, muscle function, and pain all interact in this part of your body. All of these topics today have a common thread. They're about understanding that menopause affects way more than just your reproductive system, your immune system, your inflammatory response, your bladder, your pelvic floor. Everything is connected to your hormonal health. The encouraging part is that as we better understand these connections, we're developing more targeted approaches to treatment. Instead of just throwing general solutions at menopausal symptoms, we can start looking at the specific mechanisms involved and addressing those. So, if you're dealing with mysterious symptoms that seem to have started or worsened during perimenopause, whether it's feeling like you're suddenly allergic to everything, having unexplained anxiety-like symptoms, or developing pelvic pain, it might be worth exploring these less obvious connections. How many of us are walking around with histamine reactions, thinking we're just stressed?
Thanks for listening to Hot Flasher. We're back tomorrow with more, so don't forget to subscribe. See you tomorrow.